Joe Biden is currently engaged in a primary fight against a number of progressive challengers who've made very clear who they're fighting for, on what side of the economic spectrum, whose their policies are intended to benefit. And because he's associated with past presidents, he's been in office for a long time, senator for a very long time, there's this perception that he is a representative of the way things have been, not the way that things need to be. And so he needs to campaign in a very careful fashion to show that he understands where the country is coming from. And so if he gets the primary nomination, he's gonna be running against a billionaire. The idea that he would embrace these same people, the economic elites that have gotten their way in American politics for so long, seems pretty ridiculous. And yet, this week he was at the Carlyle Hotel in New York, and he had this to say to a group of millionaires and billionaires. Remember, I got in trouble with some of the people on my team on the Democratic side because I said, what I've found is rich people are just as patriotic as poor people. Not a joke. I mean, we may not want to demonize anybody who's made money. And he goes on to say, truth of the matter is, you all know in your gut what has to be done. We can disagree in the margins, but the truth of the matter is, it's all within our wheelhouse and nobody has to be punished. No one's standard of living would change, nothing would fundamentally change. If I were Joe Biden, I would not say the quote, nothing would fundamentally change, in a time when many people think that a lot needs to fundamentally change in this country.
There's also nobody has to be punished. So again, we talk a lot about how Democrats speak on the playing field of what Republicans use, their terminology, the things that they think are important. So, I mean, say like the pro-life movement. Instead, it's more anti-choice. It's pro-life versus pro-choice. It's anti-choice is what you are. So there's connotations to the way things are said. So when you say no one has to be punished, it means that anyone else who wants to have fairness in our society means they're punishing rich people. They're not being punished. Poor people are being punished, but when rich folks talk about taking tax breaks and then throwing it on the backs of working class people, the conversation isn't, why are you punishing the working class? The conversation is, we're helping the rich so they can help everyone else. It's positive terms all around. So when you're speaking against something like this, you're still playing on their terms of, we don't want to punish anybody. You sound like a Republican.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, I don't know who the individual wealthy people in the room were. They're probably lovely people. I don't have any particular beef with any individual in that room, but I do have a problem with the way that historically, since the beginning of the United States, but it's been very clear in the past 50 years, the economic elite have been able to, thanks to campaign finance regulations that are incredibly lax and growing more lax with every passing year, able to take their money and change the laws so that they can get more and more money. And along the way, that would be fine if it wasn't also making it more difficult for us to own homes, pay for college, start a business, not die if we get in some sort of medical emergency, but that's the way it is. We do need fundamental change. So don't say nothing would fundamentally change. The part of his statement that I agree with is that even with fundamental changes, and I will use Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax as an example. This is a wealth tax of like 2% on wealth above $50 million. That would fund a lot of great programs that would benefit the poor and working class and middle class in America. But as Joe Biden said, no one's standard of living would change. Well, there'd be a benefit on the bottom end. But for those wealthy who were affected even by the wealth tax, one of the most radical policies that a Democratic presidential candidate has proposed in recent years, their standard of living would be exactly the same. They would lose 2% of their wealth, and they would still be able to own multiple, like multiple mansions, multiple luxury cars. They'd have their yachts with yachts inside of them. That would not have to fundamentally change, but what would change is that everyone else would have a chance at the American dream that they've been told about for so long, but has been growing more and more distant.
Isn't it weird that a minimum wage hike of a few dollars, $5 maybe, for the poor and working class is so drastic, but we're talking about how we're gonna be punishing and destroying billionaires' lives from them having to pay into the system that they've benefited from. We keep leaving that part out. They're not just paying because, oh man, we're so mad at them. They're paying because we've paid for them. The reason they have the position they're in is because they've done it off the backs of other people. It's never pointed out because we're gonna hurt their feelings. But we don't worry about hurting folks' feelings, as you said, that are just looking to live. If they're gonna have a baby, because you guys are concerned about everyone having babies, how much that's gonna cost a normal person. We're not concerned about those things, but if a 2% tax on people who have more money than they can even find, that they won't miss, but by the way, they'll like to add it onto the pile, somehow that's a big deal.
Yeah, and so I don't like, it's not so much just the quotes, although I don't like the quotes, it's what it represents. What would he actually do if he were president? What would he challenge? Who would he challenge? Who would he not challenge? And it seems like he's letting us know. That's the unfortunate thing.
That radical platform of no fundamental change. Even, I mean, you know, Republicans never run on no change. They constantly run on, we're gonna take it back to where it used to be. We're gonna take, I've said it so many times. Your president in office right now started his old campaign by saying we're gonna shut it all down. Those black and brown people can't stand them. We're gonna make sure this never happens again.
Yeah, no one is going to be voting for the candidate who tells you better things aren't possible. Here on the Damage Report, we talk a lot about the big banks and their ways of getting rich off the poor. They saturate the market, but there are other options. And I've got info on a socially and environmentally responsible financial institution that has no ATM fees, gives you cash back on every purchase. They even commit 10% of their earnings to charity. It's called Aspiration, and if you go to aspiration.com/TYT to sign up, you'll get these perks, and that's more money to spend or to save or to spend. Just treat yourself.